Welcome back to Her Birth, Her Story, where we share real birth experiences. I'm Brick, your host, and on today's episode, we are sitting down with Irina, who is a mom of 3. She walks us through how different all of her birth stories are and what she learned from each of those. She is a wife of a chiropractor who is focused in nervous system care and specializes in pregnant women as well. And in her story, we do touch on a little bit of miscarriage. So if that is something that is very triggering to you, make sure that you look in the show notes to see what time to fast forward to. But we really get into just the ancestral background that comes with pregnancy and birth and how generations have been doing this. Your body was created to do this. God's design is perfect. And I just love how you can see the wisdom that she grew through each one of her births are very different, leading to her most recent one that was so redemptive for her. And we even touch on a little bit the really cool healing testimony that her second baby went through when he was born with a very large hematoma. She's just very big on education, and you can really hear her heart behind birth and just really making sure that you create that safe place and connection with your baby. So please join me as we hold space for Irina and her birth stories. Hey Irina, thank you so much for coming on Her Birth, Her Story. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Hi, my name is Irina Benny and I'm in Ohio.
Awesome. And you have a really cool background. So I kind of want to start with that a little bit. Just like taking us back to your roots. What was it like? Which I know that you moved here when you were young, but just like from your family and stuff, what was it like in Ukraine, or the things that they really think around birth and nutrition?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I came here when I was 2 and we were refugees of religious persecution. And so, we do have a bit of we've been through a lot as a family. And then my mom's side of the family, she has 13 kids in her family, and my dad has 9, 10, but 1 died at birth. And so when you live through persecution with that many children, there's a lot of hardships you have to endure. And, that really helped us become really resilient and strong and survivalists. And even before then, there was a lot of persecution too. So both families, they had to essentially survive off of their livestock. So if you have it in your garden, if you have it in an animal, then that's great. And then you can sell those goods also for bread or things like that. And so when one of my aunts won a visa or whatever, I don't know how that works, or if that's just how they translate it, but that's not actually what happened. I'm not sure. So when we came to the States, we eventually built homes and we all grew up on one. So we divided a huge plot of land. And so we all grew up on that land. So I had tons of cousins playing around with us. And so each aunt and uncle has a huge garden. And if you're baking something, you need some sugar, you go get it from your aunt or uncle. So it's very community oriented. And, a lot of our husbands, because they're the ones who work, they work multiple jobs because they're new in this country. And so, to support large families, that needed to happen. And so we never went to the doctor. If we needed something, we would go to the garden and make it. So we grew up in our own little bubble, and we all supported one another. And we were, if somebody's sick, you go grab an herb from that person's garden, or you have your little Ukrainian tinctures. And so that really helped me just, be more naturally minded. And so I went to school for social work. And then as I went into my master's program, I really gravitated towards the holistic mental health type of education. And so at the time, nobody was really looking into that. And so when I presented my capstone, my room was so full. I remember there's people standing all the way in the back and then in the hallway. And I was so nervous. I'm I want to do this justice. But yeah, it was really cool in my head, it was a no-brainer to follow more holistic approaches because God designed us so beautifully. And so why wouldn't we just tap into what he has for us when it comes to, looking at our whole body? So that was a privilege for me, definitely.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And how did all of that really kind of help you shape the way that you view birth, pregnancy, and things like that?
Yeah, I will say that once my family migrated here, like in Ukraine, you have a natural birth. Like you don't have those options for, epidurals and those. I'm sure they had something for pain, but like not, my family didn't tap into that. We definitely were in the village. There was not resources there. So when we moved to the States, I know a lot of women, they didn't know how to advocate for themselves. So they did end up not having natural birth. But just what I remember from my family is like, it was like you nurse, like, cause in Ukraine, you don't have, like you have to make it work no matter what the situation is. So that's definitely like a given. But then when it comes to birth, nobody was really talking about that. You just show up at the, labor and delivery after somebody has a baby and you hold the baby after you wash your hands. That was just the norm. So like I was really open-minded to birth. I didn't really have like a huge thought process. My mom was in a really bad accident. So my two youngest siblings were a C-section because she wasn't supposed to have kids, but she did. So yeah, I was very open-minded on the actual birth side of things, but, and I'm so glad that I had a natural perspective because, once, I met my husband, and we'll get into that, then that really helped cascade that decision, make sure I made the best one for myself personally. But yeah, open-minded when it came to birth, not a lot of firsthand experience with that.
Yeah. So then did you have any expectations going into pregnancy and birth? Like what you kind of were like leaning more towards, or resources that you're really like diving into?
Yes. So the first time that I actually thought about my own birth was, my husband is a prenatal chiropractor now, but at the time he was in school, we were both in grad school together, and I was doing my holistic OT, type of experience in my school. And then he was figuring out like who he was going to be as a chiropractor. And so he himself became a chiropractor because when he was little, he had so many ear infections and tube surgeries that he went 80% deaf, and he actually didn't speak. And so his mom thought that he couldn't speak. And this was when he was like 4 or 5. So he should have been speaking. And his mom was about to have him go through another tube surgery. And she was in a car accident and was seeing a chiropractor at the time. And the chiropractor was like, hey, like I can see kids too. And so she brought him in, not really knowing like what to expect. And like within like a few visits, his ears were draining so much that like he would wake up with a ton of like yellow pus on his pillow, and even his tubes came out from like previous surgery. And so he's never had an issue since. And like to think like where he could have been had he never tried to work with the body but kept doing things to the body, who knows where he would have been. But like, it's just crazy to think, how much of a difference that made in his life. So he knew that he eventually somehow wanted to see kids, but he didn't like really, as you go into school, they don't teach you anything about like running a practice or anything. They just teach you about the body. And so, we were going to a lot of different like learning opportunities. And the first one we went to together was the Webster certification. So if you're familiar with that, that's actually, when you learn how to adjust pregnant women. And so I remember walking into this seminar, and when it started, the introduction was a video of a woman giving birth in her bathroom. And it was a breech baby, and like her husband was recording it. It was a free birth, which, I'm not advocating for. I'm just saying I saw it. And I remember saying, wow, that was my first birth that I actually just saw. And she just did it in her bathroom. And, we didn't have TV growing up, so I was really sheltered. And so I literally don't have a lot of births even in my brain. I didn't even think about what birth would look like. And so that was my first birth experience. And I was like, wow. And a lot of the clinical stuff went right over my head. I don't even know what they were saying, but I just left so empowered, like, wow, that was so cool. Like, and then they were adjusting and practicing afterwards, and everybody was just in such great spirits, and they had such a positive outlook on birth. And I'm like, wow, this is like really cool. Like, I can totally do that. And so like, as we continued doing things together for chiropractic, we were going to a lot of like mentorship groups and like just groups of chiropractors for different reasons. We were all together, and a lot of the wives had home births, and it was just the norm. Like, it wasn't like you weren't trying to show off. There was like Facebook groups, and I was in there because I was a chiropractic wife. And, you know, people were asked, that was like before support groups were even cool, you know, like on Facebook. And so I just had a really unique experience of seeing it be normalized and be shown in a positive light. And it was just such a blessing that I got to be there and get to experience that.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I love the fact that the first birth that you watched was a free birth in a bathroom. Like, that is
Yes.
that is so awesome though. And just like you said, not that we're like saying, oh, you have to do it this way, but like that is how birth could look. And I just think it's so beautiful that you had that experience. So let's go ahead and let's start walking through some of your stories.
Yeah, so when my husband and I graduated, we both took some time apart to work in other offices. And when we were ready to come to Columbus, we knew we wanted to open here. My sister lived here. You know, we moved in her basement. We were trying to figure out where we were going to live, where we were going to open. I always knew that I needed to prioritize my walk with the Lord over anything business related. So I wasn't going to wait to have kids or put it off. I was already 26 when I got married. So yeah, I was like 27 at the time, I think. And so anyway, I just didn't want to hold off on that because that's my mission and that's why I'm here. So when we moved to her basement, we got pregnant shortly after, but I didn't know because I wasn't trying to get pregnant. So it was like week 7 into my pregnancy and I still didn't know. And I took a pregnancy test because my sister kept like pushing me like, you guys can have kids. And, you know, I was like, I'll take a test. I'm pretty late on my period, but I'm not, really looking to be pregnant. I looked and it was negative, but my husband went after me and looked and it was positive. And I was like, oh, actually I am pregnant, but I didn't tell anybody because I'm really private. And so my family was coming to visit. It was around New Year. And because we're from northern Michigan, that's where I grew up, and my sister's in Columbus. And so they were coming for the new year, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll tell a few people. And so because it's so new and you're not looking to get pregnant, and it so happens so fast, and you're starting a business, and you don't even know where you're going to open yet. So there's just a lot of things happening. And so, I told my brother and my dad that I was pregnant. And then I started bleeding a few days later. And I'm like, looking it up, you're Googling everything. This is 2019 at the time. Well, 2018 turning 2019. And I'm Googling it and everybody's like, oh, it could be normal. And so I'm thinking, oh, it's probably normal. Yeah, it just I kept bleeding more. And so I'm still thinking this could be normal. And then it's like New Year's and everybody gets the flu. And so we're in the basement. My husband and I are on the couch in like the 3rd story basement because they have like the 5-level house. And we're on the couch. My family's like in the downstairs and we all share one bathroom. And so, my sister's going to the bathroom to like go throw up. And then I'm on the couch, like going through these contractions that I think are normal. Like I'm still like in this space of like, well, I'll have the flu and I'm having apparently a miscarriage, but I didn't know it at the time. And so it was really crazy because I actually started having contractions at church, like the New Year's Eve, I think, or like 2 days before. And then I kept having the contractions and then I'd go to the bathroom and I'd be like squatting and like on all fours and just going with my body. And I ended up miscarrying in the bathroom and I pulled it out, the baby, and I looked at it. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a baby, but I'm so out of it because I also have the flu. And I just throw it in the trash because I don't want to flush it. And I don't really know what's happening. I'm still in disbelief that it could be a miscarriage. And then I feel better, but I'm still having contractions. And then the next day I pull out, the baby from the trash and I put it on a paper towel and I take a picture of it because I'm like, I still don't know if this is really what I'm looking at. I don't even know if I had a miscarriage. I'm not sure. And so I ended up just flushing it because I still have the flu and I'm so out of it and I just didn't really think it through. And so the next day, everybody's kind of recovering from the flu. And I'm like, I think I just had a miscarriage, but like nobody knows. And, because we're all recovering and from something. And yeah, it's kind of a blur, but I just remember like the next couple days, I still was having contractions and I'm like bearing down kind of. And then I miscarried delivered the placenta a couple days later, which I was like really shocked that it was very large I was 8 weeks at this point. And so like the placenta was pretty large. I think it was definitely bigger than anything else that I like released during that time. And I didn't really grieve anything because I was like really going through the motions of what was happening and trying to figure out what was going on. And I did go to the hospital like a day later and they confirmed everything. And so I think, for me, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away. And so when I got pregnant, I knew this was the Lord's child. It wasn't my child. Very honored to be able to carry it for as long as I did. And for me, I know that this child will never see pain or any type of difficulty. They go straight to, meet their Heavenly Father. So I don't think that, I mourned the miscarriage like so many women do. And it's not to say that it's not so sad. It really is sad. But at the time, it just happened so quickly. And I was just so honored to have had the baby for as long as I did that, I was able to move past that fairly quickly, even though it was sad. But I did learn a lot from that. I just learned that my body knows how to do this. And my intuition was to be on all fours before I even knew anything about how to handle a contraction. Nobody told me anything about anything when it comes to going through like birth, but my body knew and I followed my intuition and everything happened the way it happened and it took care of everything. Like when I went to the hospital, they're like, oh yeah, you're good. You did it. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, that was my experience into pregnancy of like the first pregnancy I had and delivery was in my sister's bathroom. And my body knew what it was doing and it knew that I couldn't foster this life and nourish this life long term. And so it did what was best for the baby. And so I honor that. Like, this is how God created us. Yeah. So that's my first birth.
Yeah. No, and I'm really sorry that you went through that, especially just because even if you were 7 weeks, 8 weeks, just like you said, like that's still a baby. Like the Lord still blessed you with that baby and it's still, that baby's life is still precious, whether it was 7 weeks, 8 weeks, or whatever the time frame is. So I am very sorry that you went through that, but I do love your outlook on it too, because I do think that that is a way to get through things that can be traumatic like that and be really heart-wrenching, is just your outlook on it as well. So then how did this miscarriage really changed the way that you approached the next time that you got pregnant?
Yeah, so I got pregnant just a few months after our office officially opened. I don't know why, if I specifically waited until after we opened, but I just know that I got pregnant right after. And I was glowing. I loved being pregnant. Of course, after you've had a miscarriage, anybody who has walked through that, there's a little bit of uncertainty that is in the first couple weeks. But I also knew that I really prioritized my health. Like I was in my prime. Like I was eating whole foods. I was moving. I was working out all the time, just moving my body. It doesn't have to be working out, but just moving your body. I was well adjusted. I really did the work to like set myself up to where I was really confident in my body. Like I wasn't scared of germs. Like I was just like really in a good place. And so I was confident, but I also was like excited every week, like, oh, I made another week. And so I didn't actually share with anybody until I was a little bit further along. Probably like week 9 or 10, just as long as I made it past, the miscarriage. And I took a blood test for myself, like right at 6 weeks, because I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And so, yeah, my pregnancy was so good. Like I know not everybody can relate to this, but your body is so beautifully designed, and pregnancy, not always, but it can be a beautiful thing if the vessel is good. Not always, like I said, it really depends. And so, yeah, I mean, obviously when you're working in an office, you hear a lot of stories and a lot of perspectives and you hear a lot of things. But I took hypnobirthing, which, you take what you love, leave what you don't. But I really grew from that, especially as somebody who, is just really practical. They give you great tools. And I think for me, that was really what I wanted. And I also was really empowered after the miscarriage that my body knows what it's doing. So it's funny because I read so many books. I did so many things. Like I took this like as an exam. Like I'm going to pass this thing with flying colors. And I'm so type A. Like I was already reading about breastfeeding, and I took the courses, and I had a doula friend at the time, and she recommended me to a home birth midwife. So I actually interviewed a few, and I went with just who I had the best connection with. I do recommend that because likely there's quite a few resources, and you really want to be with somebody that you're going to feel super comfortable with when you're like at your most vulnerable. And so I knew I needed a doula. And so her best friend, who lives in like the townhouse next door, I was like, well, that's a great situation because they're best friends. And so they'll be my birth team. And my husband, of course, is a great person to have on my birth team. And so, yeah, I just had a really beautiful pregnancy. And I was actually really excited to give birth because I had all the tools. I already have been through this before. I was thinking, I had painful periods in the past. So, like I've got all the tools. I mean, I'm going to handle this so good. Like everybody's trying to bring me down with their ideas. And I'm like, Satan, get behind me. Like I'm going to do so good on this. Like, don't you guys worry. I'm here to change the status quo about birth. Like literally, I was so proud to be able to get through birth. Like, and I went till 41 weeks, and I probably worked, like I was in the office until like 40 plus whatever, because I gave birth at 41 exactly. Anyway, I can jump right into the birth, but I was like really excited to give birth. And so like I had like the bloody show or whatever where you wipe. And I'm like, okay, guys, like we're ready to go. Like I'm ready to get started. I had my vision board up. I had all my cards up. I had like the Christian hypnobirthing app. I had all the positions printed out. Like I washed my walls. Like I was ready to go. Like this baby was going to be impressed with how well I was going to do everything. So I had the bloody show. I'm ready to go. I stayed home from work that day, and then nothing happened. And so like I had another one like around 6 or 7, and I sent it to the birth team, and they're like, we're going to have a great night tonight, guys. Make sure you go to bed early. So I like prayed with my husband. I really tried to go to bed early, and I'm like, this is going exactly how I think it's going to go. And then midnight, I have to go to the bathroom, and, I have cramps like in the back. So I'm like, okay, I didn't read about cramps, but like, who knows? Because I read the stuff. I knew early labor. I knew how it was going to progress. And so anywho, so I started having like super minor contractions like around 12:30, and I'm like, I'm going to let my husband sleep. I'm going to be so nice. And so I'm like on the couch already ready with like the early contractions. I know it's supposed to last this amount of time. I've already have it all planned out. And then I'm like on the couch, and they're starting to get a little worse. I'm like, okay, so this is active labor now. And so I like woke him up at 1:30. And so we set up all of our video equipment. He likes making videos. And, I'm in labor. I'm tracking. My app is saying like, you need to go to the hospital soon. And I'm like, wow, okay, cool. We're going to go to the hospital. So that means I need to tell my doula I'm screenshotting things and texting her. So she heads over around 4 a.m. ish. And I'm thinking I should have this baby by 7 or 8. And my husband maybe could even go back to work for the day because it's a Thursday and we're still open on Thursdays. And so like 6, 7 rolls around, and I'm still in labor. And I remember texting my sister, I'm like, this is not what I remember. Like, I don't like these contractions. And I've got all my positions there, but I'm still gravitating to like the leaning on all fours because that's what feels good at the time. And I'm so trusting my intuition. And if I do anything else, it hurts worse. So, this is what I'm meant to be doing is my mindset. And so like I ended up being on all fours, whether it be on the couch or the birth ball, for a long time. And so like 7 and 8, I'm still in the same situation, and it's not progressing, and I'm confused why I'm not having this baby. Like now he can't go to work. So I'm upset internally. I remember the doula was like, why don't you just like try a different position? Like lay on the couch on your side. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So I lay down on the couch, and it's significantly worse. And I'm like, that's not for me. So I back on all fours I go. And I just remember it took forever. And then finally around like 12ish thing, I started like taking my robe off because I was getting hot. And so my doula, I think, called the midwife, and they're like, okay, we can get the pool set up, because I was planning on birthing in a pool. And so they were getting the pool all set up, and things are progressing. I significantly louder. I didn't think I was going to be loud. Midwife gets there on like 1ish, and mind you, I'm awake, ready to have this baby by 6 at midnight. So I've been up all night, and it's like already 12 hours later, doing the same thing for 12 hours essentially. And then finally she comes in, she checks me, and she's like, you're like an 8, so you could probably get in the pool. I'm like, great, awesome, okay, we're almost there. And so I get in the pool, and again, on all fours in the pool. And I was there for hours, and I was so upset. I was like, why am I not having this baby yet? I was like super discouraged, really trying to follow my intuition, follow my body. They did encourage me to change positions a few times. I had like positions printed out, but I was so trusting my own body that I just ignored everything. And I think I was thrown by the fact that it was taking me so long, even though I already had read that the first ones take the longest usually. And like, everything, but your mindset really is so important in birth, because I was like, I'm going to follow my intuition. So it trumped everything else, because that was like my primary thought and mindset. And so, yeah, I was in the pool forever. They were like feeding me peanut butter jelly. I was drinking coconut water. I'm in the water. And so, around 4, and the reason I know these numbers is because I just watched the birth video. So I'm not that impressive, because this was like 6 years ago. But anyway, so then they're like, let's just go to the bathroom. Maybe you just need to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, fine. And I'm in an apartment, and I'm not being quiet. So I'm also thinking, what if somebody's going to call the police on me? And so I don't want to go to the bathroom, because then I'm sharing a wall. And so then I finally go to the bathroom, and things change for me, and my water breaks there. And like, next thing I know, I'm like legitimately pushing. And I had been like fully dilated for hours now. And they said I had a cervical lip, which now obviously you need to move in a cervical lip. And I had back labor. These are things I just keep forgetting. And so my husband was like doing counter pressure for like over 12 hours, 16 hours pretty much at this point. And so I delivered her almost immediately in the toilet, not in the toilet, but like in the bathroom, once I went to the bathroom. And it happened so fast once I got into the bathroom that I also had a hemorrhage after I delivered her. And so the birth team wasn't anticipating her coming out so fast. So they just had to glove up really fast and like catch her. Yeah. My daughter being born. And yeah, I just like hemorrhaged. And I remember we had like this birth plan of like, you're not going to touch me. You're not going to do anything. It's going to be this beautiful moment. But they're like touching, like pulling on my stomach and doing all these things, giving me things I'm not supposed to disclose. And I just remember thinking, I have this trusted team, and I'm going to trust them, because I'm done. Like, I did something really hard, and I'm exhausted. I didn't sleep. And so I'm just standing there, and I'm like gushing blood, and they're like, are you lightheaded? I'm like, no, I did it. I'm just like in such disbelief that she finally is here after like she was supposed to be here at 7 and it's 4. So I was just so excited she was there that I didn't even process like what they were doing, even though it was like uncomfortable. And then they were like, where do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I just had a baby. And so we like walked to my room. Yeah. And onto the bed. And it was just so nice to like lay down in your own bed and have like people take care of you. They took care of everything. And I just got a nurse right away, and my baby was beautiful. Like, she cried right away, and she latched right away. And it was just like this beautiful moment. And I don't think you can relive like that type of high that you get once you have a normal physiological birth and have all the hormones, that are like the way they should be. But yeah, postpartum was a little bit more difficult with her. I didn't really have a tear, but I had like a first degree, whatever they call that. And so my midwife, she was like, well, I'm going to suture this. There's like a metal like clip they can put in there. Mm-hmm. And so she like clipped it, and she's like, oh, and you're on bed rest for 2 weeks. And I hemorrhaged. And so like my body, just for a first time mom, a lot of times postpartum is forgotten, but you're still healing. Literally, your uterus, it's just, if you just can't see it, so you don't know all the healing that needs to take place. But like, and especially if women are like not like nourishing themselves in pregnancy, like you set yourself up for like a very depleted or postpartum, which I was, thankfully. But I also didn't have anything to support me. Like I didn't even think about the food. Like who's going to cook me food, especially if I'm on bed rest? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to do all these things? You know, for almost 30 years, I've been doing everything for myself, and now I can't do anything for myself, and I have to take care of a baby. And so for me, it was a huge transition into postpartum. And after the fact, I always tell moms, number one, move in labor. And number two, think about postpartum. And if you need somebody for lactation help, like do the work to find people before, so that once you're there, you're not trying to find somebody. So there's so much work that goes into preparing yourself for labor, but also setting yourself up for postpartum, because I totally missed that part. I did all the stuff, but not that. And so, yeah, that was my first birth.
Yeah, no, that's really good that you mentioned that too, because I could not agree more. We always prepare for just birth and labor, especially if you're doing it unmedicated, because it does take a lot out of you mentally, physically, emotionally, nutritionally too. But the postpartum, like I've been seeing more women do these like parties where they have like loved ones come over, people that just support them by like helping to like clean the house, make freezer meals, and or like people that create like a meal train for the family for the first week or two. And like I just think that is so important, and too many times we forget about the nutrition part in postpartum, that like you should be trying to get all of those vitamins and minerals back in you. Like let's just try to remember what you just did. Like you're losing a lot of fluids, you just ran a marathon, and now you're half asleep trying to take care of yourself and a newborn baby. Like it's a lot. It's a lot.
And our food isn't as nourishing anymore either. So a lot of times we do have to supplement. Like the trace minerals, I know like are just so good. Adding some salt in your water. Just like, it's not just like dead water. You like need to nourish, like replenish your water of its minerals. But yeah, there's just, and like the quality of your food matters too, to like replenish.
I did want to speak a little bit to your experience of your hemorrhage too, because a lot of times I feel like that's one of the biggest fears, or people who aren't familiar with home birth, they automatically think that every single time that it's just an emergency. Like, what was that recovery like physically and mentally? And especially with like being on bed rest with a newborn.
I would say with the hemorrhage, with like the fear aspect of hemorrhage, that's why you hire professionals. That's why they're there. So like it's one thing to be fearful of home birth when you're free birthing, and then that would be valid because you can't support yourself. But when you are hiring somebody, you need to look at their qualifications and their trainings, and then you can eliminate that fear because they are equipped just as much as any other professional to handle that type of situation. For me personally, it goes back to your mindset, right? For me, I know I just birthed my baby, so whatever happens after the fact, like it's going to be fine because my baby's here. Like I will handle myself and take care of myself as I can. But I think for me, mostly with the hemorrhage, it just depletes you more. And so I had to take, extra chloroxygen, extra beef liver. I needed to make sure to be hydrated, and feed myself because I needed to replenish that blood loss. And I did that. Of course, I had to have people bring it to me. And that's another thing. It's very uncomfortable, like when you're type A, to allow people to help you. So that's a learning curve for sure. But I think, it all comes back to your mindset and just knowing that your body can heal. Like if you injure yourself anywhere, your body is going to heal it on its own. Like there's nothing you need to do to heal that. Or, your baby, like that grew your body grew this baby, of course, with God's help, but like your body grew that baby and nothing you did like really affected that. And so it's the same with the hemorrhage, like your body is going to heal. And so it's the mindset of like, I might have some hormonal shifts. I might be a little extra sensitive, this or that, but just making sure you have the tools to help, get your mindset in the right place, I think is like the biggest advice I could give.
Yeah, that's really good. So then how did you use this experience to prepare differently for your next birth?
So again, I'm going to always prioritize what I think God's plan is for me, which is to further God's kingdom. So I'm not waiting. I wanted to have kids close together. And so the way that I took care of my daughter allowed me to not have my period for 19 months. So she slept in bed with me. We bed shared. She nursed on demand. She never really had a pacifier unless I was transitioning her to sleep. So we did ecological breastfeeding, if anybody's familiar with that. And it's like a God's form of birth control. If you think about like God's design, it would make no sense for like if God was going to create a species that needed to reproduce to allow them to have babies super close together, because that would not be sustainable. And so through ecological breastfeeding, like if you have a baby who is very needs you a lot, so you're nursing a lot, they're on you, so your body's co-regulating, it's not going to be ready to create new life. And so because I did that, I was able to hold off my period for 19 months, which was great. But I was also wanting my kids super close together. So I was like, okay, what is my period coming back? You know me, I'm just like, okay, let's get this going. So I literally spotted 1 month and was pregnant the next. So we were really excited.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a blessing for sure. I just really underestimated the toll that, it's really hard to hire. So being a business owner and, having a daughter with you at work, at the office, it was really stressful. Everything is on a time. So you have to go to work at 3, but she didn't take a nap. And if she did nap, I have to wake her up and handle her being like not her best self. And so it was a very tough time. And because I couldn't hire anybody, because we have really high standards of who we would bring onto the team, I was hiring for over 8 months at this point, and I couldn't find anybody that I was going to trust with my practice members. And so, I had to handle all the workload, do all the additional stuff, and then finally was able to hire 2 new girls. But keeping all that caseload while having a baby with you, essentially, she's like not even 2, at the office was a lot. And I was so stressed out and overwhelmed that I just was not able to connect with this baby at all. And it is so heartbreaking because your baby is marinating in your nervous system and in your body. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed, their nervous system is in constant stress of overwhelm. So now I always tell moms, you have to create an atmosphere where your body feels safe so your baby can feel safe. Yeah. But I unfortunately was not able to experience that my entire pregnancy, and I did not connect with him. And you can really see that in that kiddo, because that's the only nervous system he knows. That's the state of the lens that he sees this world is through that nervous system. And so, I was just really fatigued, but I don't even know if I had any symptoms because I had enough stuff going on that I didn't have time to focus on those. So because of that amount of stress that I was under, he was always in a really wonky position from early on. And so even from little, when I did the ultrasound, we do one, the anatomy one, they couldn't find him because he was in a really wonky position. And so we had to dig in and really try to find pictures of him because I wasn't going to do 2. And so he was just wedged in a weird position. And so when I was about 39 weeks pregnant, I was home from the office officially. I woke up one night and I started having contractions at midnight. And I'm like, okay guys, here we go. This is take 2. And I will say that I was a lot more nervous for birth the second time around. The first time I was excited because I had the intuition and I was going to do a great job. The second time I knew what was coming and I knew it was going to be hard and I knew that I needed to work through those contractions. So if you look at my vision board, it was keep moving. I did have surrender on there because I knew it was going to be hard. And, I did do a little bit more continuing ed with the second one because for me, mindset is so important. Because pain-free doesn't work for me. It's painful. It doesn't, I can't align with that because for me, it's painful. Even if it's pressure, I don't care. I know it's going to be painful. So I just need to have the right mindset to get through it.
Yes.
And so I was just a lot more nervous, but I knew I was going to have to keep moving through contractions and I was just going to be moving the whole time because I learned from my first experience that no, you have to be intuitive, but you have to do hard things too. So you have to do both. And so midnight comes around and I'm like laying down. I got my comb this time because I learned that combs are awesome. And so I've got my comb and a week early. So I, wasn't as prepared as I normally would be because I didn't think I was going to go at 39. So I'm having my contractions and then finally go out into the living room around 4 a.m. I'm like, okay, now I'm going to start moving. I'm going to start moving and getting this going. And then I go out there and they stop. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I read about. That's not me. I get adjusted. I'm like, again, with how this should go. And then I'm like texting my doula and I'm like, I don't know, it's not happening. She's like, go back to bed. I'm like, whatever. So I go back to bed and I wake up. I'm like, what just happened? And so the next day my sister comes over and she's just hanging out with me. And I have a few contractions throughout the day, but nothing that's significant at all. So I go to bed again. And the same thing happens. And I'm just taking everything with a grain of salt. I'm like, okay, I'll see if I let anybody know. And then again, 4 a.m. and it stops. And I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. So I wake up the next day and it's not like it was the day before where it just kind of goes away. And I just have a total of 4 contractions that day. So the next day I'm like, okay, we're going to go on a walk. So I go through my apartment complex and I'm going sideways up all the stairs and I'm going up and down. And I actually start having contractions that I have to pause and breathe through. I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. And so I did that for an hour. I did my curb walking. I took my little stools and I started going up and down them sideways. And then I decided to take a bath because they say you have to relax. Okay, whatever, I'll relax. And so I did the Epsom salt bath. I was relaxing in there for a while. I had a few contractions. I wrote out a prayer for my birth and everything, which is so good, by the way, that I did that because it's really cool to look back on that once you understand how the birth went. So after the tub, I came out and I'm like, okay, I'm having to breathe through these. So I'm going to have my doula come and then have my daughter get picked up and go to my sister's house because we're going to do this thing. And so my daughter gets picked up and then my doula comes over and, she has her baby because she had a baby at the time. And so it was kind of encouraging me to see the baby because I'm like, okay, this is what I'm working towards. I have my goal here. It's my own vision board here. I've got my vision board here. I've got the right mindset this time.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through these bigger contractions and I'm like, just tell me every exercise you have that you know about and I'm going to do it during each contraction. And so I'm doing all this stuff. I'm squatting with the sink. I've got one of my legs up and I'm lifting my stomach. I'm doing all types of things, doing the 3 sisters, which I think they just changed the name of that to something else. But I'm doing all the different exercises throughout my contractions. And then I asked my doula, because I was probably in active labor at this point. This is 5 p.m. And I'm like, okay, so how much longer do you think this is going to take? Because I'm in active labor now, probably. She's like, oh, this could take days. I'm like, no, absolutely not. This is going to take days. You don't know who you're talking to. So I took that as a challenge and I'm like, there's no way. That actually upset me that she said that. And so she's like, because you just got to preserve your energy. You don't know, it could be days. And I'd already not really slept very well the last 2 nights. And so I'm like, well, they say if you don't want the midwife to come, then you either go in the shower or the toilet. So to the toilet we go. So
yes,
I did another. So then, which leads to the next stage of labor. So I'm doing one of the exercises where I'm standing, I have 1 foot up on a couch and I lift my stomach and I go through a contraction and I can just feel a huge drop in my pelvis. Immediately once that happened, I'm going through a constant contraction and it's not stopping and it's excruciating. And I'm like, what is happening? And she's like, well, tell me, what are you feeling? Are you going through contraction? I'm like, I don't know. It's not stopping. And it's been 5 minutes. And this probably was around 7 at this point or 6. And so I'm trying to move around to find a way to relieve this contraction type pain. And I found that if I sit on the couch at the very, very edge at a certain position, it relieves me from this pain. So I'm going to the bathroom. I'm sitting laboring on the toilet backwards, and then I go back to the couch to sit on the couch in this position to get relief. And so I was just doing that back and forth, and it was super weird because I had water leaking and it was discolored and all my contractions were all over the place. I didn't know when they started or stopped because of the pain, the pressure, pain. And so I didn't know how what I was doing. And if she's telling me I got a few days of this, like I definitely was in the headspace of like, I got to do what's necessary, whatever that looks like. But as much as this hurts right now, like clearly I got to be somewhere later in the stages. And so I kept asking her, like, why am I leaking? I don't remember leaking with the first one. And so you couldn't compare the two. So I had a really hard time figuring out how far along I was, like what I needed to be doing. I just knew I needed to be on the toilet to do things to open me up faster. And so she also had like kind of like a fear type, like I could sense that she didn't know either. And so I was like, okay, but she also was like communicating with the midwife because I didn't know what was going on at this point. And so the midwife was on her way over. And again, I'm in an apartment and I'm loud. I'm extremely loud. I never thought I would be. And I'm thinking somebody has to call the police on me at this point. And then they're like, go to the other bathroom because I'm going to set up the tub in there. And I was like, there's no more tubs in any labors because I was in the tub for 3 hours with the first one and it's not going to happen. I'm going to go to the toilet with the other ones. And so they want to get me to the other bathroom. But again, it shares a wall. This bathroom at least is sharing a wall to the outside, so maybe nobody can hear me. But if I go to the other bathroom where you set up the water, then I'm sharing a wall with our neighbor and I don't want to get in trouble. But they're like, just get over there. And so I'm like, okay, fine, I'll get over there. So I start walking over there and my midwife like is booking it. We actually have a video on our camera. Like they're running, both of them with their stuff hanging on them. And because I'm like getting ready to push. And I actually, now that I think about it, I was like feeling the urge to push in the first toilet, like really soon after all this stuff happened. And so I don't really want to have to walk while I feel like I'm going to push all the way to the other bathroom. And so anyway, they get there and they're like, you're ready to go. Like your baby's almost here. And I'm like, great. And so I'm like, I'm going to do this dignified this time. I'm going to stand up. I'm not going to be on the actual toilet. And so I'm trying to stand and push out this baby, but like the head's not coming out. And I'm like, why is the head not coming out? Like I remember last time it came out so much quicker than this. And then so finally I like sat down on the toilet. I'm like, well, it worked for me last time. It's going to work for me this time. I'm just like really trying to surrender. And for me, the crowning is the most difficult part of the labor because like it's a burning sensation and you have to try to relax through it. And I'm like, none of me wants to relax right now. Like, and you know, it actually has to keep getting worse actually because the actual whole head has to come out. And so I'm like trying to relax. Like it was like a game for me. I'm like, okay, I have to relax the most I can. So like every contraction I was like, okay, this is like an opportunity for me to relax. And I'm like putting all of my mindset into relaxing during this contraction. And I'm like praying so hard between them. And then finally I sit down and the head comes out. And for both of these babies, the water broke immediately before the head came out. So like I know that's what my patterns have looked like. So, okay, the water broke, so they should be coming out here any second. The head will be coming out. And so that's what happened is like the first one, I try to stand up after the water broke because I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this so dignified this time. And then it wasn't coming out. So then I sat back down and then the head actually came out. So then I stood up for the rest of the body. And I remember when he came out, like the first thing that came to my head was like, thank you, Jesus. Like it's done. Like I always take myself back to the cross. Like it's finished. Like it's done. And it was such a hard birth. And I just remember sitting down and for like 2 hours, I was in like the disbelief of like, I can't believe I just did that. Like that was so hard. Like that literally was so hard. And then later, like a few hours later, she was like, you know that like he came out sideways, right? Like when I looked down there, I could see an ear, not like the back of a head or the front of the head. It was an ear. So when the plates of the head are supposed to like go in coming out, like I didn't get any of that. Like his plates were all intact, just sideways. And so that's why he was like lodged in my pelvis incorrectly and came out that way. And so that's why it was just like so intense. And I think just my mindset of like, I need to get him out, whatever means necessary, is what allowed me to actually deliver him so quickly from when he dropped in there. And had I been in a hospital, he would have been a C-section, no questions asked. Like it would have been very different outcome. And honestly, I don't know had I had that mindset, like what that would look like if I was trying to run from the pain like I did the first time. And so he was just like a very, like everybody who prayed for me, it made a huge difference. The prayer that I had in the tub beforehand was a huge difference. Just everything turned out as a huge miracle. And again, the birth team is there to help you find out like if something like that is happening and can support you in that. And so when the midwife came, there was just like a huge sense of relief of like, whatever's happening, she's got my back, she's here. And so he ended up having like a very large hematoma. You know, my husband's a chiropractor and he works on kids all the time. So I like when you see your baby, you just see like this significant amount of love and appreciation that they're here. And so you don't see any of that. And I actually didn't bleed with him at all. Like I had a very, very healthy postpartum, even through that type of birth. Like no bleeding whatsoever, quickest recovery, like no hormonal shifts. Like it was like a really, really blessed postpartum for sure. And I was prepared this time. But I remember the midwife came back for her 24-hour checkup and she was like, my doula had the stomach bug the day before my birth. And so everybody who was at my birth that got the stomach bug. So she actually had a backup midwife come for the checkup because she had the stomach bug, and then my family ended up getting it. So it was a really crazy couple days with my son, but she was FaceTiming with the midwife and actually left the apartment. And I'm like, why is she being so secretive? Like, because I didn't even see the hematoma. I just have all this love of like, just so much love for this child. I'm seeing right past it. And they were probably talking about like, this is really bad. Like she needs to get checked out, which I'm glad they left because I didn't want to hear that. And so she came back and she said, you probably should get this checked. I'm like, no problem. I'll go get it checked. It's probably no big deal. So then I go to the Tornik, who's like the holistic DO here. And they were like, I've never seen anything like that in my whole practice. And so they sent us to like maybe get revised to get a tongue and lip tie just in case, which I so regret doing now. But, you know, we were doing whatever we could because we heard that this was really bad. And even the doctor who's been doing this for however many years has never seen anything like that. And the nurse practitioner was not kind with her facial expressions. She definitely was very shocked and made us known about how large this hematoma was. And so she was like, I usually see hematomas in home birth moms because you wouldn't get a hematoma at a hospital because they would have already done an intervention with you to prevent that. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But I'm proud that he has a hematoma. He'll figure it out. Like hematomas are normal. So I didn't see it as like a terrible thing, but because everybody was so shocked and alarmed, it started getting in my head. And so we did the revision and it completely changed my son's suck. After he had the revision, he just like was not able to latch after that. It was so traumatic to him and it was so sad. And he just really lost a lot of weight. And it was just like, you know, but obviously right now, the big risk is the hematoma and he's very jaundiced from it and like it's a big deal. And so we started going to do some cranial sacral therapy alongside like our own adjustments we were doing on him. And she was measuring the hematoma and it just kept getting bigger. And they were like, you need to go to Children's and like get this checked out. And so I'm like actually thinking, okay, what is the deal? Because I believe in the body and I know he's going to be okay, but like, why is this taking so long? But I did have a like overwhelming peace about me. It's just my mom was staying with me and she was being very stressed. And I think it was just like rubbing off on me a little bit. And she was just like always talking to him and like praying about him and like telling me things I need to be doing and then saying, oh, you might need to drain it. I'm like, I'm not draining it. And so we were doing cranial sacral twice a week. It was growing. We went to Children's. Then we had to go downtown for the proper imaging. They did all the imaging and they were like, everything looks so good. Like he looks so healthy. He's just borderline jaundice, but he's actually okay. No, even Children's said they had never seen a hematoma that large. Children's, okay? So we had some records there. But because of all the work and like, I just feel like the peace that I was giving him and the fact that like, I was just really, I love babies. I don't let go of babies. Like I brought you into this world. I want you to have such a healthy beginning. You're going to nurse on demand. You're going to be co-regulated on me. Like anything you need, I got it before you even need it. Like you're not going to cry for the first 6 months. That's the type of mom I am. And so like, I know I was doing all the right things and he was okay. But it was everybody else who was kind of, you know, had their clinical concerns or whatever. And so my husband actually, he was like, you know what, there's this great program. It's called SOT. It's the doctoral version of cranial sacral therapy. I'm going to start this program. It was a very large investment for us. But he's like, it's going to help our son. And so he would wake up early before going to work and he started learning this program, this technique. And so he was at the point where he was ready to do some adjustments and he did his first adjustment on a Sunday morning and the hematoma was fully gone by a Friday. So it was just one of those things where obviously he had a he was very well taken care of. We had so much work that we had done with him. Like, he was so loved, and I knew he felt safe earthside. And so once whatever needed to happen happened, like, it was just gone. Like, I have pictures of like just how quickly it went down. Like, we woke up and it was like almost gone. And we took him back to like everybody, and everybody was just like, I can't believe, like, I can't believe my eyes right now. And it's not funny, but my husband's, one of his good friends that he was interning with, his son was born with a hematoma as well, a large one. And so my husband sent him a video of like, you need to do this. And he did it, and it also helped him. And wow. So it was just like such a blessing. But yeah, I mean, there are some things that can happen in a home birth. And I had 2 situations where I had 2 births that were so different. And for somebody who's so type A like me, I was like, this is supposed to go like this. It did not go like that at all. It humbled me so much. And then I had another birth that totally didn't go at all how it should have. And both postpartums were so different too, with the hemorrhage and then now too the baby with the hematoma, that I really had no idea what to expect with the third. I'm like, well, I'm not going to let my fears get in the way, but like I need to go back to my, like, you know, whatever they do in sports where they start again and say, okay, we need to start fresh. And I'm going to actually be very intentional for baby number 3, which leads me to that story.
Yeah. And so what did you do differently to prepare for number 3?
Yeah. So, I mean, as you get older, you learn things. And I love birth. I think God's design is so beautiful, and it goes beyond God's design. It's God designed it as a whole. Like, if we could get closer to how he designed us to function, then we just create a better vessel for the baby to grow in. So after my second son, I was not in the office anymore. I'm like, I cannot. And so this is the first pregnancy that I had where I was home. And of course, there's different challenges when you're home with 2 young children and working. I mean, it's not to say there was no challenges, but this was the first pregnancy that I really felt connected to my pregnancy, and I felt connected to my baby and was able to really feel more safe and create a more safe environment. I mean, I was very safe with the first one too, because I just loved being pregnant and I was in this like la la land of like wonderfulness. But this is the first time like since my second son. But this pregnancy did throw me for a loop because I was very tired, and had a lot of aversions. So I had been either pregnant, nursing, or both for the last 6 years at this point. So my body had been through some things, you know, but you know what? My mom had 13 kids in her family, and her mom did it just fine. Same with my dad. So it's like the tough love mentality of like, it's your mindset, sweetie. Like, you can always find negative things. Like, life is full of negative things, but like, it's all about having the mindset. Like, there's a viral video right now, I'm sure maybe you've seen it, of like the husband who made like a pop song out of his wife's texts. And I'm like, I could have easily said all those things, but I'm so thankful personally that I didn't. Not to say anything about that, because those things are valid. They're so valid, and like, we laugh about it because we all can relate. But like, if you say those things, then you give like you let them be true, right? And so I really protected my mindset with this baby. And I was just like, this baby is a blessing, and I'm honored to be able to carry this baby. And one day I'm not going to be pregnant, and I'm going to be so thankful that I really was intentional about my mindset. And I have a really great friend. Her and I got pregnant at the same time, unbeknownst to us. And we got to walk through our pregnancies together.
Wow.
And it's funny because we actually gave birth on the same day with the same midwife, and we joked about that, and like, we shouldn't have done that because that was like crazy. But like, it definitely was a more difficult pregnancy, and I was carrying very large, and I was the first time I ever was swollen. So those were new for me, but I just stayed moving. I knew what I needed to do, and I just you know, it's crazy. Like, I had like really fast heart palpitating times a few times with my swelling. And I bought like even like the blood pressure monitor. And all I did was I stopped drinking the electrolyte mixes, and I just added trace minerals to my water, and it stopped it. Like, it's just crazy. Like, I just didn't need the artificial stuff. I just needed the real stuff. And then like, it was fine. But I would say this time around, because of my second birth, I really knew that I needed to focus on baby's positioning, because it made a huge difference. I had all the chiropractic care with 1 and 2. Number 1, I had a cervical lip. I should have moved. Number 2, I was so stressed out, and it just changed the trajectory of my birth. Whether I got adjusted or not, it trumped everything. And so number 3, I needed to feel safe. I needed to feel connected to my baby, and I needed to be really mindful to move in a position where it supports God's design for us. God designed us to be moving. We're not supposed to be on couches. We're supposed to be on the floor or heart surfaces. We're supposed to be not hunched over because that's gravity pulling baby in a bad position. Not bad, but like not correct position for birth. Like we should be leaning forward so the butt can go in the right position and the head gravitates towards the bottom. But anyway, I was just like really intentional with the biomechanics of the body, making sure I used gravity to my advantage. And so I would turn on YouTube videos and do like those like pregnancy prep stuff. I went and made a document. I literally saved so many videos, screenshotted them, created a document for myself of like phase 1 in labor, these ones, phase 2 in labor, these ones, phase 3 pregnancy prep, and I would give those to our moms in our office. So hopefully they help. But I was just really intentional about baby's positioning and just like staying moving and my mindset, like all those things. And I also had a prayers for baby and myself in this year. And I would like read over those prayers every single day. This was going to be my redemptive birth. I was just praying for all the things. And I have 2 kids now. So I'm like, okay, I just pray that they sleep through this labor. And I pray that, baby's positioning is right in Jesus' name, and that like birth is this how many hours, and that my midwife makes it and my doula makes it and they're of service to me and all these things. And so I will say that the month before having Abel, my third, it was really difficult because of the swelling I had, because of the fatigue. So it was by far my hardest physically, but the mindset really got me through. And I also was like, my friend has to go first. She got pregnant before me and she was already having contractions for like a month at this point. I'm like, she needs to go first. So I had the stress of like, she needs to go first and then it'll be my turn. We have the same doula. The backup is like traveling. So anyway, so I wake up at like 1-ish and I start having these like tingles. I'm like, they're not really, like they don't feel like contractions. And then they happen for like an hour and they stop. So I'm like, yeah, that was weird. So then the next day, the same thing happens at like 1 again. I have these like weird sensations. I'm like, what is, okay. And then they start getting more intense. So I've got my comb ready. I'm breathing through them. And so I wake up my husband after like 30 minutes. I'm like, I don't really know what's happening, but I have like weird sensations. I don't know what it is, but they were happening like pretty consistently. And so then I like got up and I'm like, I'm going to go to the bathroom and see if anything changes. When I went to the bathroom, it was like intense. It was like every 3 minutes. And I'm like, okay, well, I think I'm in labor. And this is like 1 a.m. So I still have, a lot of night ahead of me. And so I'm like timing everything, but it's just like they're lasting like 30 seconds, but they're like every 2 minutes. So I'm like, that's really weird. But what I've learned from my first 2 births is there's not going to be a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Sometimes it's going to be 2 minutes apart, 8 minutes apart, the whole time. So I'm like, I'm not putting any stock into any of this stuff. And so then I'm starting to have to breathe through these already. And I'm like, wow, this is happening quick. And I'm like in disbelief because it's still like not as intense as it was the first 2 births. And so, yeah. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to go do like the sisters or whatever. Like I'm probably going to want to get adjusted to get this, make sure I'm in alignment and good as I progress through labor. And so we go out and get the table ready. I'm doing like the 3 sisters and I'm like really I'm like, you need to do counter pressure. Like this is intense quick. And I'm a counter pressure girl. If you don't know what counter pressure is, you are doing yourself a disservice and your husband, I'm sure, or your partner, like they need to know how to support you and that's how they can do it. So I'm just saying, he's already doing counter pressure and then my son wakes up and he needs to be put back to bed. So he's in there and I'm like, I have to do these alone. And so he adjusts me. I'm doing exercises again. And then I'm going to the birth ball because I'm going to go, this time I'm going to have the baby on the floor with a birth ball and I'm going to not use the toilet is my thought. Then I'm like birthing on the birth ball and I'm telling my doula, I'm like, I think you need to head over because these are pretty intense. I have to really breathe through them and they're pretty close together. So you can just tell me where I'm at. Like for me, I like let myself check out a little bit when there's a birth provider there because they've got it. So that to me is really helpful. And so she comes over and then I'm at the birth ball still. And then I'm like, wait, if my water breaks, it's going to make a big mess. Like I should go to the toilet, wait for my water to break, and then I'll go finish at the birth ball. Like, yeah, that's a good plan. So then I go to the toilet and I'm like waiting for it to pass and it's just getting intense. And I'm like, I don't even know what's happening right now. And then my doula comes in and I was like, I feel like I'm ready to push. And she's like, I don't remember if if she told me to check or if she checked. She's like, you're pretty close. And so she tells the midwife to come. And then my midwife comes, and I literally had this baby within 2 hours of starting labor. And I didn't even know I was in labor for the majority of it. And so like my baby slept through it. So like I was awake and officially timing everything. I think it was at 2. And then I had the baby at 5:04. And it was so redemptive because like I felt so connected to my baby. Like when I was having those intense contractions, I was definitely in transition on the toilet. And I was like, it was getting worse. And at the moment, I was like, it just has to keep getting worse. And I have to just sit here and know that as bad as that was, it's going to get worse and then worse. And then I'm going to crown. And so I had to give myself permission to know that it's going to be tough. And then every time I had a contraction, I mentally, because I was already had experience being connected to my baby, like give him permission to like push off the uterus and have a contraction. Because that's what happens. Babies push off and, start the descent. And so like it was a mental like giving him permission, and we just felt so connected in that birth. And it was like I had just, by the time he came out, I just felt so connected. And the funny thing is he's my largest baby. He was almost 9 pounds. And when his head also was having a hard time coming out, and it came out, and he was my first baby where the head hung out for like a minute and then the body came out. Because the other times the head came out and then the body right out. But he was so big that he needed time. And the thing is, there was meconium. That's another thing that a lot of pregnant women are scared of, is the meconium thing. And they were like, there's meconium in your fluid, so we're going to have to take your baby when he's born. And I'm like, I'm just waiting for the head to come out. Like, whatever you tell me, I trust you. Like, I've checked out with that. I'm giving you permission. I just need to get him out. And so the head came out, and he's like making noise with the head out, and I can like hear him, and it's so funny because my husband records it all so you can see it. But yeah, they were like, well, because he was making noise, we actually didn't need him. They were thinking we might need to like resuscitate him or like help him, but he was clearly fine. And I did have a little bit of bleeding with him because I think of how fast it was, but definitely no hemorrhage, no tearing, nothing. Even no tearing with my second when his head came out sideways. It awesome. Really just like the game of like trying to relax in contractions for me made a huge difference. And especially with baby number 3, he was very large, like for me. And it was the redemptive birth that I prayed for. Definitely my quote unquote easiest birth. He was like very upset for like the first couple of minutes, maybe the first 10 minutes of life. He didn't want to latch. He didn't want anything to do with anything other than just being upset at how quickly that happened. This one, he was my redemptive birth, and he just is my most like just connected kid to me. So it was redemptive in every way.
Yeah, that is amazing. Your examples here, your 3 births are just such an example of just because one birth was this way does not automatically equate that every other birth has to be like that. And I think it's just important for moms to know too, and I say this a lot, that birth is gonna birth. And it, as much as you prepare for it, it just doesn't automatically equate a perfect, great experience, because there is so much that goes into birth. It's not just the education piece, the physical piece, it's literally a mixture of all of it. And I just love too that all 3 of your stories just show like how preparation is important, because I feel like even though with your first 2, even though they were long and it was not what you were expecting, the preparation that you still did helped in many, many different ways with that. But I love how this 3rd one really just like wraps it all up together. You obviously have mentioned too how you felt more connected with your 3rd baby during pregnancy and even after. Can you kind of just like tell us, what do you think allowed that connection? And if there's a mom out there who is really wanting to make sure that they connect with their baby more, what they could do?
Yeah, so I think the number one most important thing is creating a safe environment for baby to thrive in. So I think if you don't know how to relax per se, Deep breaths, when you breathe in, you activate the sympathetic, the fight or flight. When you breathe out, you activate the parasympathetic, the rest and digest. And so like for me, if I were to create a perfect situation, if this is possible, I would go outside with no shoes on, no sunglasses, let your eyes meet the sun, let the body accept the sun and all the great things that come with it. On the ground, do some deep breathing, really connect with yourself first. This is like some weird woo stuff that people sometimes like don't even want to think about their bodies as like energetic and, just for what it is. There's a lot of energy and good that our body has. And, God created for us to be outdoors. He created us to be moving, see sunlight. And so just really take care of yourself first and make yourself feel safe. And then after that, like your baby will have a safe place to grow and thrive in. I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is your mental headspace and how you cope with things that come your way. Of course, it's important to get adjusted, to have good alignment, because like, thankfully, I don't know what it's like to not get adjusted during pregnancy or before. So I know myself that I have like a great foundation, like biomechanically, but getting adjusted, making sure your body is in alignment for the baby to stay and grow in a healthy position, but then also just really taking care of your mindset and watch how you speak to yourself, watch how you speak to the baby, watch how you speak about pregnancy, watch how you speak about your birth and your postpartum, what you speak over yourself, and really flourish that grateful mindset and just do your absolute best. We're human. Like we're going to have, obviously pregnancy isn't the easiest thing to walk through. And a lot of women have a lot of different, symptoms and things they work through in pregnancy, but really trying to create a safe place for yourself and baby, I think is so important. Do some extra squats. If you're doing dishes, maybe just hold on to the edge of the sink and try to do some squats. Have it be part of your routine. Once in a while, try to sit on the floor in the pregnancy, not on a couch. It's 9 months. It's going to pass by and then you're going to forget about it. If you think about like if you ever been through school, you have a test, you stress so much about that test, you do what you need to, and then it's like gone. It's like you forget you even did that.
Yeah.
It's the same with birth, like and pregnancy, it's a period of time and, try to be a little bit more intentional and maybe write out a plan of what you want to do. Like I'm going to sit on the floor. I'm going to put trace minerals in my water. This is when I'm going to take my prenatal. I'm going to go see a chiropractor who specializes in pregnancy, and I see on their Instagram page that they're very comfortable with this population, and I know that they have like social proof behind what they do. And another thing is finding like-minded people who have the mindset that matches yours, and really, really try to keep that negativity away from your brain, because what you water grows. And it's our brains are so easily wanting to connect with negative things because it keeps us in a safe bubble of, being potentially a victim to those things. It actually takes work to find the positive and have a different mindset. And so I think to me, that's the most important thing, is to protect that and protect the baby's space and your space.
Yeah. And I love that too, especially that you have been an advocate for just movement as well in pregnancy and in birth and labor, because I feel that in today's society, and this isn't everyone, I'm not speaking for everyone, but just a lot of people, that we view pregnancy as where like they well, you can't lift, you can't do this, you got to be careful. You almost feel like you have to be in like a bubble. And movement is key. So I love that you touched on that a little bit. But you had said something to me a while back too, of that you live for after the head comes out. Can you kind of explain what that moment represents to you and just how that mindset might help or encourage some other women?
When I think of I live for the head coming out, I really think of taking it back to the cross, right? So when he was praying and he was getting ready for what he knew, what was going to come, he was so nervous, he was like bleeding blood, right? And so for me, I know that I'm going to go through something really hard, and I know the only way out of it is through it. Like I just have to get through it, and I just have to know that like I'm going to be at the end of myself. And then it's going to be over, and it's going to be the most beautiful thing, and it'll be finished, And so like for me, everything is so worth it once the head comes out, because crowning is done, transition is done, the anticipation leading to birth is done, which sometimes can be just as, you have to work through that too.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything that you worked so hard for, the dreaming of the baby, the conception, the first trimester, the second trimester, everything, like once the head is out, it's finished. It's done. The hard part is done, and the rest, like, you're just going to care for the baby the best you can. But there's like no fear of like, what if this happens or that happens? Like, it's finished. Like, it's done. The head's out.
Yeah, that's really good. And I don't know, I'm going to assume that you kind of felt this way, but just the amount of relief that comes after you birth the head, for me, was just absolutely insane. You have mentioned that you often cross-check things with like God's design and kind of what worked for our ancestors. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, God's design is perfect, right? And, before couches, before modern day convenience, like life was different back then. Even my mom and my dad, they lived in that design. They lived in a village. I don't even think they had electricity, honestly. Maybe they did later in life. And so they really learned how to ferment their own foods, how to grow their own foods in the soil. They learned how to work with animals. They ate real animals. So nowadays you have to pay big bucks for grass-fed chicken. Like everything, like in the world of convenience, like it's gotten further and further from like how we're supposed to function. And so like back then, when I was in Ukraine for a summer before the war, there's women way later in their years who are out in the garden squatting, in the soil, like they're connected to the ground, they're outside in the sun, they have like their linen dresses on, and like that's how they live, and they're like doing great. They don't have urgent cares. I mean, I'm sure they do now maybe, but like, this is before convenience. This is how we lived. You went and got your own water. Like you were always active. Like now we have couches. Now we have screens, LED lights. We have, shoes that don't even fit the mechanics of our feet and our bodies. And now we get our wisdom teeth pulled, and we wear sunglasses, and, just everything is for convenience and comfort, and it is to the detriment of our survival and our body's function. And I actually, if anybody knows Pathway magazines, they're like chiropractic magazines for pregnancy, and there was like a whole midwifery one, and I was so empowered reading this because I was pregnant with someone, and they were talking about like how women used to use a lot of different muscles which strengthen their childbearing body parts. So they used to strengthen like their legs and their glutes, and now so many women have very weak glutes, very weak abdomens, and so you're expecting a woman to have a fully physiological birth when they don't have the right muscles to like be super confident that can happen. And so it was just like a really eye-opening series of like, you need to be active. Like your body is built for movement. And that's when even like in nervous system care in our office, we specialize in looking for that. A lot of times we scan for that because we're like, let's just see, is there fatigue in your core? Like where's the inflammation in your nervous system? Are you extremely stressed in your job and you have a ton of inflammation in your neck and you're just stuck in this position? That's going to infect your low body. Yeah, it's just a lot of things are backwards. And unfortunately, if you really want a physiological, healthy birth, you do kind of have to go back to God's design to be confident in that.
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense if you really like think about it with the muscles being weaker. And I just think it's crazy because there's a lot of people out there that recommend that you basically don't move. And like, yeah, that's, wow. That makes a lot of sense though.
Yeah, like if you're looking at the like a super mainstream, like how can I make this as like safe as possible? Like, there are women who unfortunately have like history of like maybe, malnourishment and like, they haven't really, had a very healthy beginning. And so you can have some complications with X, Y, and Z, but you can't paint everybody with that brush. And then you do them a disservice because, 3 people out of this sample size had this. So watch out, everybody. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, there's such an important place for Western medicine. Like that is really needed. Like if you're going to have a complicated birth, this is the country to be in because you're going to have excellent care for that. But unfortunately, we're also like number one in infant mortality rates. So like, it's also not set up for you to have a healthy birth either. So you really do need to advocate for yourself. If you're going to go to the hospital, you have to know what that's going to look like and what you need to advocate for yourself with. Like, you wouldn't just show up to a marathon or something and just never have practiced or even looked at what a marathon was, or, you know, anything like that. You always have to prepare for big things that are going to push you beyond your limits.
How can just us as women, just learning from each other again and just kind of rebuild that generational wisdom?
Start with a podcast, start with this one. Because when you live in community, you live with your grandma, your mom, your aunt, your sister, people's experiences. But unfortunately, because we don't live like that anymore, you rely on your midwife and your doula to be that for you. But you're also likely going to learn a lot through your own experience. So you have to learn from other women's experiences before the fact. Books, like midwives and doulas, they do this as a career. This is their life. And so reading books written by them is a great thing. Nowadays, for convenience, if we're thinking about like, okay, if I'm driving, I can listen. If I'm walking, I can listen. Then put on an audiobook, put on a podcast. What I love about this one is that you have bonuses about topics. And then in addition, you have interviews with birth professionals, and you have experiences with moms with different stories. And every mom brings her own wisdom that she learned from her midwife. And so it's like wisdom amplified when you learn from other women. And so again, just making sure that you do yourself a service and learn from other women, because it will only serve you.
Yeah, and you know, for me, I just think that in the US, we are really kind of suffering from not having that generational wisdom from our grandmas and our aunts and our parents. Like, we're just so like individualized, and everyone's always trying to be out on their own and all of that. But like,
yeah,
we are missing out on a key component as women of just having that community. What is one mindset that can completely change a birth experience?
The I can't do this. You can do this. You were made for this. And I know women say this all the time, but it's so true. Like, in this country, you just have too many options. So like, you have to like think, oh, do I get induced or do I not get induced? Do I go to this hospital? Do I go to this provider? Do I do this screening? Do I do that? There's so many choices, so many options. It's just such a big topic. Like, the reason why so many people love home birth is because you get to determine. You just have so much more say in your birth, and you don't have to do all these extra screenings and extra visits and open yourself up for people to speak negative in your life about it. So you have more control over that. I would definitely tell yourself, I can do this. And everywhere in the world, people are giving birth. And it's just, you're going to go give birth, because you don't have this menu of options that you need to decipher through. Like, you're already growing a baby. You know you're going to do something hard. Just know you can do it. People are doing it all over the world. And it's not stressful, because like, they know they're just going to need to do it. But in this country, there's just too many options, too much opinion. It's just like, I don't even know what to compare it to.
There's literally nothing that you can compare it to, because when you really sit down and you like look at everything, it's wild. So what's one thing about birth that most women are getting wrong?
That they're not the main character of their birth. We had a physical therapist come to our office, and she was like, my OB told me something so good. She's like, she says I'm the co-pilot. And that is so true. And we're like, what? You're the co-pilot? No. Pretty sure you're the one having the baby, so that would be weird. But in the nicest way possible, because in this country, we are letting people speak on our behalf, and we don't know what we don't know. And so we're letting people's opinions and thoughts infiltrate ours, and we're not doing enough to be educated enough to like support ourselves well. And we don't believe in paying the money for a doula or a provider. We would rather get whatever gadget, on our baby registry. And second of all, anyway, I have a lot of opinions on babies and gadgets, and I think baby needs to be on you and your breast. I will always put a plug for that. Like, if you want your milk to come in, don't use a passy. Just let the baby be on you. Just think of the baby's nervous system. Think about what the baby needs, not because society tells you need to have those things. Like, baby literally just was in you, and they don't know life without you. Their nervous system needs you. Like, but yeah, I just think that, just think about the baby and try putting the baby's needs above like what somebody tells you. Like, what would best serve your baby? Because at the end of the day, the baby's nervous system is going to develop and grow. And if baby is at its absolute healthiest, that's only going to serve you and your family. And so, like, having a healthy birth, like, it starts with pregnancy, like supporting yourself in pregnancy, educating yourself on birth. Unfortunately, people forget that poor birth outcomes affect baby's health too. And that's not something that, you want to focus on, because again, that's your mindset and you don't want to live in fear. But like, if you can better support yourself in preconception, pregnancy, in labor, that's only going to serve you and your family, and your doctor, your OB, your hospital staff. Like, they know policy, they know emergency care. That's what they're trained in. So that's what they're going to advocate for. So, look into a doula. Maybe try it out, and it's going to serve you. Get yourself the team and make sure that you don't live with regrets.
I like to end every episode with one question, and that is, if you could speak one piece of empowering wisdom into the hearts of the mothers listening, what would that be?
I would just say you are so uniquely designed. Like, you are literally made for this. And I know, like, a lot of people say that, but you are. And like, you are your own worst enemy, and you are your own biggest advocate. And so you get to choose which one you're going to be in labor, delivery, pregnancy. So really try to feed, like, just water what you want to grow. If you want to have a good mindset, water that. Water gratefulness, water the things that are gonna allow you to flourish and be the best version of yourself, and just determine what your mission statement is in life and try to make every decision off of that. So if you want to be grateful, if you don't want to live with regrets, if you really want to create something special, then make sure that you really try to lead with that. Yeah. Then that stays true for birth, for how you make parenting decisions, how you react to your children. But all of that takes mindfulness and work.
Yeah. No, yeah. That is really good. For my listeners that are in the Columbus area that want to connect with you or your guys' practice, can you tell them where they can go to do so?
Yeah, so our practice is a tone chiropractic. We're in the Polaris area, and my husband has done the certification for Webster's probably twice, and then a few other different certifications for it, for pregnancy, for pediatrics, the SOT certification. We're very passionate about preventing a storm at pregnancy or at labor. So like, if we could just really serve a pregnant mom and change her mindset and thought process before birth, if she doesn't have the right education and tools to allow her to have her best birth, and we really want to bridge that gap. And so we try to do that, but also in supporting babies and allowing them to have a healthy beginning. We're really passionate about it. And so, yeah, we'd love to see you, but there's also other really great offices in the area. So you can always reach out, and, I can connect you to an area that's closer to you. I have a lot of directories that I'm a part of. The end goal is always to support the mom in the nervous system, so it doesn't matter where you go as long as you go to a place who can do it well. I think it's really important to differentiate who's specialized and who says they do it. You just have to go on social media and see what the office looks like.
Yeah, and for our listeners who maybe aren't close to you, or I know that we don't have all of our listeners aren't in Ohio, can you just run through a quick list of some things that moms should be looking into, for their chiropractor before they go to one?
Yeah, I always like to recommend calling them and just asking them questions like, what percentage of your practice members are pregnant women? How many babies have you seen? There's also something called PX Docs, pxdocs.com. Their directory, they do such an excellent job of equipping chiropractors to be very nervous system focused, and you have to complete their certifications before you can be on that directory. So those are a good place to look. That's where I would typically look. But also, just right now, if you work with pregnant women or babies, social media is a huge thing. You're going to be showing that because you want people on social media to see that that's your specialty. Mm-hmm. So I do like to tell moms, like just check out their social media and see how they share about it. But yeah, I definitely giving them a call, asking, their stats, going to their social media. A lot of offices should already be on that, should be sharing about that. And then also going to PX Docs.
Gotcha. And we want to make sure that the chiropractors are Webster's certified.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. And nervous system specialized is also really good, because that's where they assess where there is inflammation in the nervous system. And it is a huge benefit if mom's nervous system is regulated when you're growing a baby. So to remove that interference, and then also allow the body to transition through the hormones properly in labor, and then of course in postpartum, is also very helpful. So nervous system specialized and Webster certified.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much, Irina, for coming on Her Birth, Her Story.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Wow, what amazing stories. I just love how you can hear the wisdom that she learned through each one, and how she learned to surrender with her most recent. I just love that she's a huge advocate for that ancestral, generational wisdom, and just the way that God designed our bodies. If you are in the Columbus area near Polaris in Ohio, make sure that you reach out to her and their practice for all of your chiropractic needs, or just to help connect you with someone that can best service you from a nervous system standpoint, and also through pregnancy, or just as a family chiropractor. They post a lot of great stuff on their social media too, so make sure that you follow them on Instagram. It is Atone Chiropractic, and all of the great resources that she gave too. If you aren't local to them, definitely make sure that you look at PX Docs, and that should be able to give you some of these chiropractors in your area that can specialize in kids and just really help you create more of a safe nervous system for you and your family, because we don't talk enough about how important that is, especially to create a safe place and connection for you and your baby while you're pregnant. So Irina, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your stories. I really appreciate you and your wisdom that you shared with us. And I just want to personally say thank you to Irina and Atone Chiropractic for just all of their support for Her Birth, Her Story, and just what they do to help equip women so that no matter how you choose to birth, you can just be better educated and have a better understanding of how certain things that you do, education that you do, whether it's chiropractic care, the practitioner that you choose, and where you choose to birth, all significantly can impact your birth experience. So once again, thank you, Irina, and thank you, Atone Chiropractic. If this episode inspired you or empowered you in any way, please share it with another mama who needs to hear it. And don't forget to like, rate, review the show, because this helps us get this out to as many moms as we can. And as always, don't forget, this is your body, your baby, and your birth. We are reclaiming birth one story at a time.